everyone. Excited to jump into the world of NVIDIA today.
Yeah, definitely a company making headlines.
I mean, you know them for those gaming graphics cards, right?
Right.
But they've become so much more than that. Really a powerhouse in the AI revolution. So today, we're going to go beyond just those headlines. Really try to understand NVIDIA as an investment opportunity. What do you think?
Sounds good. And it's fascinating, right, how they've shifted from mainly gaming to being such a major player in AI.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
Like their gaming graphics cards, still super popular.
Oh, yeah.
But that real growth, it's empowering those data centers that are fueling this whole AI boom.
They've become essential, haven't they?
Yeah, the backbone of it all. And you see it in the numbers. Their revenues more than doubled just in the last fiscal year. And their data center business leading the charge, no question.
It's incredible growth, like 215% revenue growth in their compute and networking segment.
Exactly. That's the one that houses their data center business. It's not just growth, it's an explosion.
Yeah, it's wild.
All thanks to those powerful chips, the ones needed for training and running all those AI models.
Oh, gamers are still out there loving their graphics cards.
Oh, for sure.
But it's the data centers that are really driving this financial rocket ship.
Yeah.
Speaking of financials, let's dig into those details a bit. What stands out to you when you look at NVIDIA's overall financial picture?
Well, their profitability's got to be mentioned. Their gross margins hovering around 70%.
Wow.
Incredibly healthy for any company, but especially in such a competitive industry, shows they have real pricing power, control over their costs.
So they're growing like crazy, incredibly profitable. Sounds almost too good to be true. Are there any red flags investors should watch out for?
Well, there are always things to consider. With NVIDIA, one thing I noticed, they set aside $2.2 billion for inventory provisions.
What does that mean exactly?
It could mean they overestimated demand or maybe hit some supply chain snags. Worth keeping an eye on how that plays out.
Like a little speed bump on this high-speed journey?
Could be.
Okay, so we know they're financially strong. But what about their strategy for the future? How are they positioning themselves in this rapidly changing tech landscape?
Well, their full stack approach is really key here.
Full stack?
Yeah, they're not just making chips, they're building this whole ecosystem around them.
Ah, I see.
GPUs, CPUs, DPUs, specialized interconnects, systems, even software. It's the whole package.
So not just selling ingredients, they're offering the gourmet meal.
You got it. And it's attracting a ton of developers, over 4.7 million using their CUDA platform.
That's huge. What is CUDA exactly?
It's their parallel computing platform and programming model. Think of it as the foundation for a lot of AI development.
Ah, okay.
And this creates a network effect, strengthens their grip on the AI space.
Makes sense. So they're building a loyal following, particularly among those who are actually building the AI applications. Smart move.
Very smart. And it helps explain why they're considered the gold standard in AI hardware. They're GPUs, used everywhere for training and running AI models.
Yeah, you hear about them all the time.
And that full stack approach gives them a real edge in optimizing performance for those demanding AI workloads.
They've built a pretty impressive fortress, haven't they? But even fortresses have vulnerabilities. Let's talk about the competitive landscape. Who are the other players vying for a piece of this AI pie?
Oh, there are definitely challengers out there. You've got your big names like AMD and Intel trying to catch up in the AI chip market. Then you have companies like Huawei making some noise too.
So familiar faces and some newcomers looking to disrupt the game. What makes these competitors a threat to NVIDIA's dominance?
Well, some are focusing on creating custom AI chips tailored to very specific needs, like Google for their massive data centers.
Right.
This could challenge NVIDIA's broader approach, especially if those custom chips outperform in certain areas.
A bit of a David and Goliath situation?
Kind of, yeah. And then there's the whole geopolitical landscape to consider.
Oh, yeah. Can't forget about that.
The US-China tech tensions, export controls, all that adds another layer of complexity.
Yeah, especially since a big chunk of NVIDIA's revenue comes from selling to China, right?
Right, exactly. It's a reminder that even a company as strong as NVIDIA isn't immune to global forces.
Definitely. Okay, so we've established they're financially strong, got a clear strategy, but face some serious competition. What's your overall take on NVIDIA as an investment?
Well, they're definitely right in this massive AI wave, well positioned for more growth, at least in the short term.
Okay.
But those competitive and geopolitical pressures, can't ignore those.
So is this a stock you buy and hold forever? Or is it more about riding the current AI boom? What do you think?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer's not simple. Much depends on whether they can maintain their tech lead, navigate these potential headwinds.
All right, let's delve into those financials a bit deeper to get a clearer picture. Let's start with their recent 10K filing, the one for the fiscal year ending January 28, 2024. What are the key numbers that jump out at you?
The sheer scale of their growth is the first thing you notice. That compute and networking segment, the one with their data center business, brought in a whopping $47.4 billion in 2024.
Wow.
That's more than triple what they brought in the year before.
Triple in 1 year.
Yeah. Mind-boggling how fast they've scaled that part of their business.
That's incredible. What about their graphics segment? The one with the famous gaming cards. Has it been left behind?
Not entirely. It brought in $13.5 billion in 2024, up from $11.9 billion the previous year.
So it's still growing, but not at the same pace as the compute networking giant.
Right. It's really overshadowed.
For investors, that's a clear takeaway, isn't it? NVIDIA's future is increasingly tied to the success of their AI business.
Definitely. And you see that reflected in their operating income, too. Compute and networking generated $17.6 billion in operating income in 2024.
Okay.
Compare that to $4.8 billion the year before. A massive increase.
Massive. What about the graphics segment, contributing significantly to their bottom line?
Yes, but the numbers are much smaller, like I said. Operating income for graphics was $4.9 billion in 2024, up from $4.1 billion in 2023. Solid, but not the star of the show.
Okay, so revenue growth and operating income, impressive. But what about profitability margins? You mentioned earlier they have those healthy gross margins around 70%. Does that hold true when you look at the 10K?
Their reported gross margin for fiscal year 2024 was 72.7%, even better.
Even better.
Yeah, but there's a little catch. Remember those inventory provisions?
Oh, right, yeah.
Those actually impacted their gross margin.
Interesting. So their underlying profitability is potentially even higher than what's reported.
Precisely. If you exclude the impact of those provisions, the margin would be even more impressive. Really shows the strength of their core business.
Okay.
And for context, their gross margin in 2023 was 56.9%. So even with the provisions, they've had a big jump in profitability.
That's encouraging. They seem to be firing on all cylinders, financially speaking. But profitability is only one piece. What about their ability to generate cash from operations?
Now that's where things get really interesting. Look at their cash flow statement. NVIDIA generated $16.3 billion in cash from operations in 2024.
Wow.
Compare that to just $6 billion the year before. A huge leap.
Huge.
Shows their ability to turn that revenue growth into actual cash.
So they're not just growing, they're becoming a cash-generating machine.
Yeah.
What are they doing with all that cash? Hoarding it, investing it, returning it to shareholders.
Definitely not letting it sit idle. They're investing heavily in R&D, crucial for staying ahead in the world of AI. R&D expenses were $9.4 billion in 2024, up from $6.1 billion the year before.
Makes sense given how fast the AI industry is moving. But are they also rewarding their shareholders?
Absolutely. They're using some of that cash for dividends and stock buybacks. Actually spent $10.4 billion on stock buybacks in 2024.
Wow.
A pretty clear sign of their confidence in the company's future.
It seems like they're finding a good balance, right? Fueling future growth and rewarding investors at the same time. Now, let's take a peek at their balance sheet. How's their overall financial position looking?
Balance sheet is very strong. At the end of fiscal year 2024, they had $26 billion in cash, cash equivalents, and marketable securities.
That's a lot of cash.
It is a massive war chest. Gives them a lot of flexibility to invest, make acquisitions, or weather any storms.
That's comforting, especially in a market as unpredictable as tech. But what about debt? Are they taking on a lot of risk to fuel this growth?
They do have some debt, about $8.5 billion in long-term debt at the end of 2024.
Okay.
But it's very manageable, especially with their strong cash flow and overall financial health. Plus, they paid down about $1.3 billion of debt in 2024.
So they're being responsible, using debt strategically, but managing it carefully.
Exactly. And they have that $1.25 billion credit facility for extra flexibility, like a backup generator.
Right. From a purely financial perspective, NVIDIA seems to be in a very good place. Strong revenue growth, healthy profitability, solid balance sheet, and generating tons of cash.
No question.
But numbers only tell part of the story. Let's go beyond the financials and dig deeper into the strategy behind those numbers. We mentioned their full stack approach earlier, but I'm curious about the details. What makes it so effective, and how does it set them apart from the competition?
Well, A key aspect is their focus on building this entire accelerated computing platform. They're not content with just selling GPUs. They want to provide the complete solution, everything from the hardware to the software.
So they're aiming to be a one-stop shop for AI computing. Everything a company needs to build and deploy those AI applications.
Exactly. And that's smart. The market's getting more complex, more demanding. Companies want simpler solutions, not a bunch of pieces they have to figure out themselves.
Makes sense. Can you give us some examples of how this full-stack approach plays out in practice? What are they actually offering?
Sure, their DGX Cloud service is a good example. It's an AI training platform delivered as a service.
Okay.
Customers can access NVIDIA's powerful hardware and software tools without having to build their own expensive infrastructure.
So like renting a supercomputer in the cloud.
Exactly. That's a really attractive proposition for companies who want to get started with AI quickly. But it's not just hardware and infrastructure. They're also investing in software, building that robust ecosystem around their CUDA platform.
Right. CUDA, we mentioned it briefly. But why is it so crucial to their strategy? Why are developers flocking to it?
Well, CUDA is this parallel computing platform and programming model, lets developers harness the power of those NVIDIA GPUs for a huge range of applications. It's the bridge between the software and hardware.
So it's what lets developers write code that can actually run on NVIDIA's GPUs.
Exactly. And that's a key differentiator. They've fostered this huge community of developers who are constantly pushing the limits of what's possible with AI.
They're not just selling chips, they're empowering the people who are building the AI applications of the future.
You got it.
It sounds like a winning formula. But as we've discussed, every strategy faces challenges. Let's talk about those competitors again. What forces could potentially disrupt NVIDIA's dominance?
One interesting dynamic is the emergence of custom-designed chips. Big tech companies like Google are building them.
Okay.
These chips are specifically tailored for their own AI workloads, and that could challenge NVIDIA's more general-purpose approach.
So specialization versus generalization. NVIDIA's strength has been those powerful GPUs that can be used for a wide range of things. But what if those custom chips start outperforming them in specific areas?
That's the challenge for NVIDIA, right? They need to constantly innovate, improve their GPUs, stay competitive against these specialized chips.
A never-ending race.
And then you have the geopolitical wildcard, of course, the ongoing US-China tech tensions. That adds a whole other level of complexity.
Absolutely can't ignore that.
Their ability to sell their most advanced chips to China is already restricted.
Right.
If those restrictions tighten, it could really hurt their revenue growth.
It's a reminder that even the strongest companies are vulnerable to these global forces. Okay, so we've got NVIDIA, a high-growth, high-potential company, facing some real risks and competition. Putting it all together, what's your overall assessment of NVIDIA as an investment opportunity?
Well, they're riding this massive AI wave, as we said, well-positioned for continued growth, at least in the near term. But you can't ignore those competitive and geopolitical pressures.
So a high-stakes bet with lots of moving parts.
Exactly. It is a lot to consider. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've talked about the potential threats, but NVIDIA's not just sitting back, right?
Yeah.
They're actively working to lessen those risks and play to their strengths.
Right, like their investments in R&D and those strategic partnerships.
Yeah.
Let's dig into those a bit more. What are they doing to stay ahead of the curve?
Well, their commitment to innovation's clear. Look at their product portfolio. They're always evolving. Take their latest GPUs, codenamed Blackwell. These aren't your average graphics cards. These are powerhouses designed to handle something called trillion parameter scale AI.
Trillion parameter scale AI. That sounds incredibly complex. Can you break that down for us non-techies? What does that even mean?
Think of AI models as massive networks, like a brain with interconnected nodes. The more parameters these models have, the more complex and capable they become. Trillion parameter scale AI refers to models with a huge astronomical number of connections, so they can process information, make decisions with a whole new level of sophistication.
So NVIDIA is building the hardware for the next generation of AI,
Yeah.
the kind that'll power self-driving cars, personalized medicine, all that.
Exactly. They're pushing the limits of what AI can do, and their hardware is making it happen.
Creating the infrastructure for a whole new world of possibilities.
They are. And they're not just stopping at hardware. Remember, their CUDA platform. It's not just a tool for developers. It's a whole ecosystem, a community where AI innovation thrives. With millions of developers using CUDA, it's basically the industry standard for AI development.
It's like they built a city and attracted all the residents with the best amenities, so it became vibrant and self-sustaining.
Exactly. And that thriving community shows the power of their platform, a valuable asset that really reinforces their dominance.
So it's not just about the chips themselves, it's the whole world they've built around them.
Right. And that world is expanding beyond just tech. NVIDIA is making strategic moves into other industries, like healthcare and automotive, for example.
Speaking of those industries, let's talk about how NVIDIA's tech is being used in the real world. We've discussed the potential of AI, but how is it actually making a difference today?
Well, in healthcare, their GPUs and CUDA are being used for all sorts of things, accelerating medical image analysis for faster, more accurate diagnoses. They're also used to train deep learning models that can predict patient outcomes, identify potential health risks.
So AI is actually improving healthcare delivery, leading to better outcomes for patients.
Exactly, and it goes beyond that. In drug discovery, they're using NVIDIA's tech to simulate how molecules interact. This speeds up the identification of potential new drugs, could revolutionize drug development, shorten the time to bring treatments to market.
It's like a virtual lab, testing millions of combinations in a fraction of the time.
Precisely. And in the automotive industry, their NVIDIA Drive platform is at the forefront of the self-driving revolution. This platform gives car manufacturers everything they need to develop and deploy those self-driving vehicles we've been hearing so much about.
So they're not just making the chips, they're making the brains of those self-driving cars.
Exactly. NVIDIA Drive includes the hardware, software, simulation, even testing tools, everything to create and validate autonomous driving systems.
It's like they're building the operating system for the future of transportation, enabling cars to see, think, navigate without us.
Precisely. And the implications of this are huge. Self-driving vehicles could transform transportation entirely, making it safer, more efficient, more accessible for everyone. NVIDIA is setting themselves up to be a major player in this transformation.
It's clear their tech is having a real impact.
Yeah.
But with great power comes great responsibility, right? There's been a lot of discussion about the societal impact of AI, from jobs to bias. How is NVIDIA addressing these concerns?
It's crucial for any company involved in AI to consider those broader impacts. And NVIDIA is taking steps to address them. They've partnered with organizations focused on responsible AI development, and they've got internal guidelines to mitigate bias in their own systems.
So acknowledging that AI isn't just about advancing technology, it's about making sure those advancements benefit society as a whole.
Exactly. And as AI keeps evolving, it's crucial for companies like NVIDIA to be part of that conversation, working with policymakers and others to shape the future of AI, maximize the benefits, minimize the risks.
Striking that balance, progress, and responsibility. Now, back to investors. What are some key considerations when evaluating NVIDIA?
Well, we've talked about their growth, but investors need to assess if it's sustainable in the long run. Can they stay ahead technologically? Can they handle the competition and the geopolitical uncertainties?
So looking beyond the hype and assessing their long-term potential.
Right. Investors should also consider their valuation. NVIDIA is a high-growth company, and its stock price reflects that. It's important to figure out if their current valuation is justified by their future earnings or if there's a chance of a correction if they don't meet those expectations.
So is the market being realistic about their growth, or could there be a bubble?
Exactly. And look at their capital allocation strategy. How are they using their cash flow? Are they investing enough in R&D to stay ahead? Are they returning value to shareholders through things like dividends and buybacks? Are they making strategic acquisitions?
So it's about understanding how they're managing their finances to create long-term value.
Precisely. And look at their track record. Have they delivered on their promises consistently? Can they adapt to changing market conditions? Have they shown they can handle challenges?
So evaluating their management team, their ability to lead through thick and thin.
Exactly. And finally, investors always have to consider their own goals and risk tolerance. NVIDIA is a high-growth company in a dynamic industry. High potential returns, but also higher risk than more established companies.
It's not a one-size-fits-all investment. Investors need to be okay with that level of risk, prepared for potential fluctuations in the stock price.
Right. It's about finding the right investment for your specific goals and risk appetite.
Now let's get into some specifics of NVIDIA's offerings. We've talked about GPUs and CUDA. What makes these technologies so important, so integral to AI?
Well, it all starts with their graphics processing units, those GPUs, originally designed for video game graphics.
Right, that's what they're known for.
But they've proven to be amazingly well suited for the complex calculations needed in AI.
It's fascinating how a technology created for one purpose can be so transformative in a completely different field.
It is. Shows the ingenuity and adaptability of tech. Those GPUs excel at parallel processing. They can do multiple calculations at the same time, and that's crucial for AI, especially training those deep learning models that need to crunch huge amounts of data.
So GPUs are like supercharged brains, processing information at lightning speed.
Precisely. And NVIDIA has always been at the forefront of GPU development, constantly pushing for better performance and efficiency.
Always trying to make those brains faster and more powerful for even more sophisticated AI.
Exactly. And to work with those powerful GPUs, they created CUDA, their parallel computing platform. Think of it as a translator between the software and the hardware. It lets developers write code that can effectively use the power of NVIDIA's GPUs.
So it's like giving developers the tools to talk to those supercharged brains.
Precisely. And that's why CUDA has become the standard for AI development, further cementing NVIDIA's influence.
Okay, so we've got the brains, GPUs, and the language, CUDA. How are these actually being used to solve problems in the real world? We talked about healthcare and automotive, but I'm sure there are other areas.
Oh, definitely. NVIDIA's tech is being used across many industries, from finance and retail to manufacturing and energy. Take finance, for instance. Their GPUs are powering those algorithmic trading systems, analyzing huge data sets to find trading opportunities, execute trades in milliseconds.
So AI is playing a role on Wall Street, where speed is everything.
Exactly. And in retail, their technology is being used to personalize those online shopping experiences, recommending products, optimizing supply chains, even helping with fraud detection.
So AI is quietly guiding our shopping experiences.
It is. And in manufacturing, their GPUs are powering robots and automation, improving efficiency on factory floors. They're also being used for quality control, catching defects in real time.
So AI is not just replacing jobs in those factories, it's making them smarter.
Precisely. And in the energy sector, they're using it to optimize oil and gas exploration, predict energy use, and manage smart grids.
AI is everywhere.
Yeah.
But with this rapid spread of AI, there are also ethical considerations we need to address.
Absolutely, you're right. The ethical implications of AI are becoming more and more important as the technology advances.
It's true. We need to be having those tough conversations, thinking about those potential impacts.
We do. And it's not all doom and gloom, right? AI is not just about job losses. It's also about the new opportunities it can create.
Opportunities. In what way?
Think about it. AI can automate those repetitive tasks, the boring stuff, freeing us up to focus on more creative, strategic work. It can also help us do things better, make better decisions, solve complex problems, create new things.
So it's not AI versus humans. It's more like AI and humans working together, each bringing their strengths to the table.
Exactly. Finding that synergy where AI enhances our capabilities and opens up new possibilities.
That's a much more positive way to look at it than what you usually hear.
It's about finding that balance. Technology empowering us, not replacing us.
Right. And besides jobs, another big concern is bias in AI systems.
You're right. That's a critical issue. AI systems are trained on massive amounts of data. And if that data has biases, the AI will learn those biases.
So it's not just the algorithms themselves, it's the data they're trained on.
Exactly. Garbage in, garbage out. If we train AI with biased data, we'll get biased AI.
And that could be really harmful, perpetuating existing inequalities or even creating new forms of discrimination.
That's why it's so important to make sure the data is diverse, representative, and free from bias. And we need ways to detect and fix bias in AI even after it's been deployed.
So it's an ongoing effort to make sure AI is being used ethically.
It is. It's everyone's responsibility, the developers, the users, all of us.
Okay, shifting gears a little, let's focus on some investment considerations for NVIDIA specifically. We've talked about their business, their tech, the bigger picture of AI, but what about the practicalities of investing in this company?
Well, their valuation is a big one. NVIDIA is a high-growth company, and that's reflected in their stock price.
Right.
But investors have to be careful, assess whether the current stock price is justified by their future earnings potential.
So are expectations for their future growth realistic, or could there be a correction?
Exactly. And their capital allocation strategy is important too. How are they using their cash? Are they investing enough in R&D to stay ahead? Are they giving back to shareholders through dividends and buybacks?
Right.
Making smart acquisitions?
So it's about understanding how they're using their money to create value over the long term.
Right. And look at their track record. Have they been delivering on their promises? Can they adapt to a changing market? Have they shown they can overcome challenges?
So assessing the management team, their ability to lead through different situations.
You got it. And always, always, investors should consider their own goals and risk tolerance. NVIDIA is high growth, operating in a dynamic industry.
Right.
Lots of potential, but also more risk than some other companies.
Investors need to be comfortable with that.
Absolutely.
Okay, as we wrap up our look at NVIDIA, what's one final thought we can leave our listeners with?
Here's one to think about. As AI keeps advancing so rapidly, will NVIDIA be able to hold on to their top spot in the AI chip market? Or will they be overtaken by a new wave of innovators with even more powerful and groundbreaking technologies?
That's a great question. I guess only time will tell. But it's something all investors should be thinking about as they consider NVIDIA and the future of AI. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into NVIDIA. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
We hope you found it helpful and informative. And remember, the tech world never stands still. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep investing in your knowledge. That's the best investment you can make.